Hello, and welcome to the Student Experience podcast, where we'll be chatting to members of the University of Suffolk community, giving them the opportunity to share their experience with us. I'm Sam, and I'm a member of the Student Experience team, and in today's episode, we're joined by Justin Hunter, who is a lecturer in mental health nursing. We discussed the mental health nursing course available at the university, opportunities for students after graduation, and Justin's journey to becoming a lecturer. So, Justin, thanks for joining me today. Would you like to firstly introduce yourself?
Thanks for having me. My name's Justin Hunter. I am a nurse lecturer here at the University of Suffolk, and I specialise in mental health nursing, for which I am a course lead for the undergraduate programme.
Perfect. So, could you give us a bit of an overview about the mental health nursing course and how it works from when they start to or when they graduate?
Absolutely. So, our academic programme is endorsed by the Nurse and Midwifery Council, with whom, when you complete the programme, you register and become a named registrant on the Nurse and Midwifery Council website. And firstly, in the first year, what we do is we look at the core foundational nursing values, so good communication skills, good skills of empathy, as well as we establish how nurse practice is formed. So through personal judgment, through evidence-based practice, and through research. And so we look at all those sorts of skills in that foundational year. What I would say we also do is we like to think creatively about how we might support service users that we work with in mental health. And so, therefore, one of the real privileges is that we get to do that in a variety of different ways. So, we have a creative intervention module at the end of our first year that looks at creative ways, like through poetry, through other mediums like music, that we can utilize and draw upon to help our service users make meaningful recovery from mental illness.
So, in terms of sort of their progress as they go through the years, I guess it becomes more and more detailed.
Yeah, so after we've got the first year done and we've covered those foundational skills, within the second year, what we start to look at is different types of psychotherapy. As you can imagine, in mental health, there's lots of different types of psychotherapy available to service users, dependent on the nature of the challenges that they face. And so, what we do is we cover how to assess service users to recognize what those needs are. That's the first module. The second module is then looking at different types of psychotherapy. And the third module in the second year, the last one, is about meds optimization. So medication um, is a useful tool in the recovery of service users who experience poor mental health. And so it's very, very important we make sure that medication is applied when needed and where it is optimized so that it's the most effective it can be. So we have a whole module on that.
Perfect. And then as they move to level 6, I'm sure we know about there's going to be a dissertation.
There is going to be
What
dissertation.
can they expect from that?
Absolutely. Unescapable, unfortunately. So within the third and final year, what we cover in the program is we look at complexities of care. So we all know lots of common different mental health disorders, maybe like depression or anxiety. But in the delivering complex care module, what we cover is we cover the fact that very often it isn't just a fact that a person may be depressed. It may be that there's lots of other areas that impacts in their life, or lots of other areas of their life that impact their mood. And so what we do is we're trying to help our learners unpick those sorts of challenges. So which came first, the depression or the causes, or was it the other way around? What are the compounding factors that keep somebody depressed? We want them to think about those things for a variety of different disorders. So we even move into the weird and wonderful disorders that are maybe slightly more exotic, such as conversion disorder, which is a much, much lesser known one, fabricated illness disorder. So we look at the more uncommon mental health disorders that people can experience and what we might do to help people with those. That's the first module. That's only the first one. So the second module is about leadership and management. As we come towards the end of the program, any nurse is a leader in the practice that they deliver. It may be that they enact that leadership through oversight of a service user's care. It might be that they are in charge of a shift on a hospital ward. It might be that they take a position of leadership, such as a managerial post or something like that. So we look at different types of leadership, the differences between leadership and management, and we look at how we can instill those skills of leadership in the student nurses that we have. And then finally, before the dissertation, politics is the final module where we look at things like equitable care. So, for example, there are marginalized groups in our society, and in mental health, sadly, that's no different. And so, what we do is we use the module to look at disparities in access to healthcare for marginalized groups in society. And we start to think about how we might remove those barriers so that we can improve people's access. We know research tells us in mental health that the sooner we engage with a person, uh, the better their health outcomes are. And so, if we can get our learners to think about what the potential barriers to accessing care are and to start to remove those in their clinical practice, then hopefully we have a much more accessible and equitable service in society.
And then dissertation.
Finally, one dissertation. So we have a 6,000 word dissertation at the end of our program, and it is a systematic literature review on an area of mental health that the learner defines themselves. So it may be eating disorders, for example, if that's an area of interest that they have. It may well be perinatal mental health. It could be around service user experience. It could be around nurse experience, carer experience. It can be on anything they want it to be as long as it's a good and reasonable question. And of course, what we try and hold true to is the idea that research should inform our future practice and should seek to solve problems that we recognize in the care that we deliver. And our systematic literature review is no different. We try and make sure that that's a central focus of it.
And I guess, like you say, it's so important that they choose something that they're interested in because it is difficult.
It-
But if they have a passion for it, then
Absolutely. So I think if it's an area of interest, it might well be that this is a question that has bugged them about the mental health system as they've worked through our program, and so therefore they want to know more about it. And so that choice to be inquisitive and engaged with the subject matter often yields the best sort of results in terms of our dissertation marks. Where people have been curious, we see it. It sort of comes alive on the page.
yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
And then in terms of sort of the assessment process overall, how does it work? I know there's placements. Is there coursework, exams? How does it
So
work?
there's a mixture of all those things, really. So we have lots of different types of assessments, from video logs to we have OSCEs. So they are observed clinical events, such as the assessment of a service user. So we will be present in the room and we will watch that and offer feedback and a grade. Um, we do practice sessions before that because we know that those sorts of events can sometimes make people nervous. We have essay writing. We have two examinations, one in basic anatomy and physiology and the other one in medication management. So we have to make sure we have a public duty to make sure that when learners qualify and complete this program, they are safe and competent practitioners when it comes to medication management, because we need to protect public ultimately.
And then in terms of the placements, I guess as they go through it, they get more and more time on placement, do they? Or
What happens is we actually divide it up pretty evenly.
Okay.
So there will be a period of block learning here at the university. And then after that, what we do is we send people on 6-week blocks in clinical practice. The Nurse and Midwifery Council state that our program has to include 2,300 theoretical hours and 2,300 clinical practice hours. And it's that people complete on placement. So they have to go into a clinical area and they have to try and use some of the skills that we've been talking about down here at the uni to inform their practice. There has been some innovation in that regard in the past year, so we're about to complete in the School of Nursing and Mental Health program as well. We're about to complete our first simulated practice week, where we help people to sort of acclimatize to what an inpatient clinical environment in mental health might look like. And so we provide some simulated learning in that regard using some of the resources we have available to us.
Okay. So in terms of when they go out on placement, what sort of areas can they expect to go to, and where can they? Because I know we're based in Ipswich, of course, but I'm sure there's different places.
There's lots of different places. So we have both NHS clinical placements, and they can include inpatient mental health units, like Woodlands, for example, is a local one we have here in East Suffolk, or Wedgwood House over in West Suffolk. It can be that they go to a specialist community team, like where I used to work in the ADHD service. that look after people with ADHD. It can be the early intervention in psychosis service, dementia services, eating disorders services. So there's a whole raft of specialist services. One of the great innovations in that regard is that what we're now starting to do for our servitude and for our learners is give them the choice of placement.
Mm.
So they are able, we try and provide our learners with information about their placement for the entire year so that they know where they're going to be come the end of the year, not just at the beginning. And if it's not an area of interest for learners, learners are now able to swap, which I think is one of the great innovations. And this is based off of feedback that we've received from our learners that they wish to do. So we came up with the systems and implemented them to make sure that if learners wish to swap to something they might find more interesting or to a different clinical area, then they can.
And I'm sure potentially they might be in an area that they're not don't necessarily think they have that interest, but I'm sure a lot of them probably think actually this is quite
Yeah.
interesting for me.
Absolutely. So we have lots of learners who maybe didn't think that a certain clinical area would be for them, who then come back to us and say that is the area that when I qualify and finish this program, I wish to work. So it can work. It can absolutely work both ways. We also have a system whereby we can allow our learners to choose their final placement. So the final placement in the third year, their management placement, we call it, where we need them to show us all those skills of leadership and management. They get to choose. So they get to choose a top 3 places they wish to go. And I'm very, very happy to report that this is the first year we've run that system. And I think it was something like 87% of people's first choice was what they got. So it's a system that seems to really be working and seems to make our learners happy, which is good.
That's really great to hear. So at the university, we have the fantastic health and wellbeing building. In terms of mental health nursing, is there any sort of specialist equipment or
Yeah.
they have access to and they use?
So we have access to the wards, the simulation wards.
Mhm.
But we also, and so we have access to all the fantastic equipment there, the simulation dummies, all the equipment to teach fundamental nursing skills like giving injections, basic blood pressures, things like that, basic physical health checks. So we have all those equipment. We tend to make most use in mental health of the community flat, which is a replica. It's supposed to simulate somebody's home, and we tend to set that up for our learners with lots of different um, props and things that bring out of our learners different inquiry into different facets of mental health. So, for example, if you went into somebody's house and they had a big stack of medication, that would probably prompt a question from me as a clinician. And so we would
Okay.
expect our learners to walk into the flat and to ask questions about those sorts of things. So it helps with those broader skills like powers of observation. If I told you that I'd taken lots of medication, but you see a load of medication on the side, then it again invites conversation, doesn't it? So we want our learners to have those sorts of skills, those skills of curiosity.
Mm. So in terms of when the students are at the university, what sort of support services can they expect to have? I know there's personal academic coaches, there's disability and wellbeing, there's lots of different services that they have access
Yeah,
to.
so we are all personal academic coaches amongst the team, and we provide as much support as we can because ultimately we want our learners to succeed and to get the highest classification of degree they possibly can. Aside from that, we have learning support services, and this is an area where I think uh, us lecturers tend to draw on the skills within that team as much as we possibly can. So we would invite our learners to do the same. They have dissertation supervisors. We have module leads for every module that we deliver, who is the sort of touch point if you have any questions or queries. The sorts of resources that we use can all be found on our Brightspace virtual platform. And aside from that, we have student welfare who do a fantastic job of making sure that our students are as well as they can be, really, because it can be challenging.
Yeah. So in terms of when students graduate, what sort of areas can they expect to work in? What areas have students gone on to work in?
I think this is the most exciting thing, and definitely one of the things that made me want to go into mental health, which was essentially that you can work anywhere. Mental health is a broad church with lots of specialist areas. So, like I say, early intervention in psychosis, you can work in perinatal mental health services, you can work on a ward, You can work in a community team like I did. The options are very varied indeed and
Mm.
very much depend on where you think you would like to work, an area of interest again. So if you are interested in perinatal mental health, you might want to go and work on a mother and baby unit for people that are experiencing acute uh, mental health issues. If you find the realm of eating disorders interesting, you can go and work in eating disorder units, or you can work in eating disorders community teams. So it really, really is a broad church.
Yeah, and that's probably as one of the things that makes it so exciting, so interesting for students. So, in terms of fantastic university we have in Suffolk, is there anything that you think makes this university and the course stand out, perhaps more so than other universities? I know we have sometimes have smaller cohort sizes, so that might.
Yeah, so I would say that it is the responsiveness because maybe we do have smaller cohort sizes. So I would say that I think that the team is pretty responsive in getting back to people if they raise concerns or if they have issues or if they need extra support. We like to think that we're pretty responsive in that regard, so that people get to know us. I can say with a high degree of confidence that I know pretty much all the people on the program, and I think that's one of the benefits really, that it is much more personable. I'd also like to think that all the lecturers on the team uh, also have experience of undertaking this program. I trained here at the University of Suffolk when it was University Campus Suffolk, and I remember what it was like. I remember what it was like to be in year two, or to
Mm.
be, you know, tired, and to have potentially a job on the side or things like that. The challenges that can come with attending university in general. And I think that we're pretty open to those challenges and pretty keen to want to help people. I would say that the simulation equipment is one area that we have that is, I think, world class as opposed to some other universities in a purpose built building
Mm.
with bespoke modern equipment that can help us sort of simulate practice as closely as we possibly can.
So, I mean, it sounds like a really interesting course. I'm sure people that are listening might quite like the idea of maybe applying for this course. So, for prospective students that might be considering making an application to UCAS, what sort of advice would you give them for them to have the most successful chance of being accepted?
So obviously, UCAS asks a whole bunch of questions
Yeah.
about your educational history and things like that, and of course, we invite people to give us that information. But from a mental health nursing course, the thing that we really want to hear is that people have the right care values, that people are compassionate, that people care about other people, that people are vested in the well-being of others. Those are the sorts of skills that you can't that are harder to teach, because ultimately we want good people with good care values that want to help people. So I would say that if you're making an application, that would be what you include. Why you're passionate about people.
Yeah.
Mental health is definitely a people business. And so we want to hear why you care about people, why you're invested in people. Is it that you're interested in the psychology? Is it that you're interested in how when things go wrong, how we potentially might help them to be put right? It's those sorts of things that we really want to hear that I think would make any application stand out for us.
That's brilliant. So one of the really great ways for students to learn more about the course is coming to open days that we run throughout the year. So what are some of the key questions that prospective students may come to you with, and maybe some of the answers that you give them?
Well, one of the questions we get an awful lot is that maybe people live near Suffolk, but maybe not in Suffolk, like Essex or Norfolk, for example. And can we provide them with the clinical placements that they need to attend on this program? We can. We are the University of Suffolk, and I would say that most of our placements are within the Suffolk area, but we have a small provision of placements within Essex and a small provision of placements within Norfolk. And so we will do our level best to try and provide people with placements that are engaging from a learning point of view, but also as close to where they live as possible, so we can try and help. It can't always be guaranteed in Norfolk and in Essex because we are the University of Suffolk, but as much as possible, we will try.
Yeah. So we also have the brilliant adult nursing and children's nursing course here at the university. So what are some of the characteristics of maybe the mental health nursing course that might make students want to do mental health compared to the other two courses?
I would say that some of my happiest memories from clinical practice are the levels of investigation that we do. So we care about physical health. Just because we're mental health nurses doesn't
Mhm.
mean that we don't care about people's physical well-being. We absolutely do. The thing I would say is that sometimes physical health issues can manifest as a mental health problem. So, for example, somebody might be experiencing hallucinations, but it might be that there is a physical cause for that hallucination. And so, for me, one of the greatest facets of this job is investigation, being a detective,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's going on in terms of anatomy and physiology, or what's going on in terms of the social circumstances of this service user. That has always been one of the most rewarding parts for me. The sort of becoming Sherlock Holmes for the day,
Yeah.
thinking critically about why people behave in the manner that they do.
That's great. So students, once they've received their application and they've been successful, is there any advice you have for them between having a successful application and their first day at uni so that they're best prepared for their course?
Yeah, so I would start to look at the NMC standards, so the Nurse and Midwifery Council standards, so that students can know essentially what if they look at those standards, they'll understand what we're going to be looking at on the program, because the program is endorsed by the Nurse and Midwifery Council and is set to their standards. And so if they can start to familiarize themselves with that process of looking to the NMC, looking to the NMC code of conduct as a registrant, I think they're going to find some of the things in there that will definitely be present on the course. And as well as that, they know what underpins our practice.
So, I mean, in terms of when students are on their course and they're starting and they go through their course, what advice would you give them to really get the most out of their course so that they're best prepared when they graduate?
I think use learning support services. I think that's got to be the best one. I study here at the university as well as teach. And I would say that using learner services has been one of the best sort of eye openers to help me maximize the grades that I was receiving. And so I would urge students to do the same. Aside from that, this is something that I say a lot in my day to day life, but I would very, very much like for students to engage with the reading list. So
Okay.
provide a reading list of important texts that underpin what we discuss in lectures. And as a result, I would love it if students sort of got into the habit from day one of looking at the reading list and reading the items on there. We don't set whole books, we set usually pages or chapters that we think are relevant to the subject that we teach. And so it's a really, really good place to start in terms of essay writing or prepping for an exam or those sorts of things.
Yeah, and like I say, that's all really important information. So before we move on to chat a bit more about yourself and your role and why you joined here at the university, is there anything else you'd like to mention about the course?
Just that we are looking for passionate learners. If we also want to hear from people who have experienced points in their life when maybe they've struggled with their mental health, we want to hear from those people because we use a lot of real life experience. We have a lot of guest speakers come in who talk to us about their experience of maybe not so good mental health. That's something that we really use to add that authenticity to our program. I may have never experienced schizophrenia, and as a result, it would be difficult for me to really articulate what that must be like. So we try and use experts by experience to come in and inform our learners about those things.
And I guess also it's worth saying that at the university it's very diverse and students come from all different backgrounds, different ages. So it's not just 18-year-olds that are coming in. You
Yeah.
could be any age.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a real broad spectrum of some people that come to us maybe later in their career. Uh, we have people that come straight out of sixth form. Either way, everybody's welcome, really. As long as you've got those care values, we certainly want to hear from you.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, it'd be great now to have a bit of a chat about yourself and sort of from your point of view, in terms of your journey before this role and why you applied for this role as a lecturer. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so before I came to the university as a lecturer, I was a manager of a community mental health team that worked with young people aged 14 to 25. I did that role for 5 years. I always had an interest in working with younger people and trying to make sure that when younger people develop mental health problems, I was very, very keen to nip those in the bud as much as possible and to try and help people live long, happy, meaningful lives as we all wish to do.
Yeah.
I also specialised, I worked in A&E for many years uh, as a psychiatric liaison nurse. And if people came into A&E and maybe they were worried about their mental health, things like that, we would be on hand to talk to those people and hopefully make a plan to get them the support that they needed.
And then in terms of sort of seeing this role come up, what was it that made you sort of?
Well, I really jumped at the chance. I had such a positive experience down here when I trained 15 years ago now. It was a little while. But I had such a positive experience and I just really want to be part of that team. So I was unsure if I could do it, if I could make that transition from sort of team manager to lecturer. Uh, yeah, there were times where I was a little bit unsure that whether it was the right thing, but it's been one of the most rewarding decisions I think I made in my life, and I'm so glad to have made the jump. And everybody's been so welcoming and so accommodating, and recognizing that whilst I had lots of skills when I was in clinical practice, I needed to develop a whole new skill set to make sure that I could maximize the learning of people that we support down here at the
Yeah, and that's something that we hear on the podcast all the time, how supportive the teams are, and for staff members as much as students. So I guess for you, you don't have a typical day as such. I guess every day could be very different, and that's probably something which is great about the job.
Yeah, absolutely. So some days I can be role playing a service user for whom maybe our learners need to assess mental state. Other days I can be given talks on leadership theories. Some days, like today, I've just come from signing off people's list of competencies that they have to complete when they are on clinical placement for a cohort of students that are now finishing their program and about to qualify, which is an incredibly proud moment for them, but also for us as staff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be a very, very diverse day. Marking.
Yeah, probably. That's probably one of the less fun things you do, I'm sure.
But
But interesting.
it's absolutely interesting. I mark a lot of papers, as I'm sure you can imagine, Sam. But the thing I would say, the thing that I didn't realize was how rewarding marking papers would be. The reason why is because I don't profess to know everything about mental health. Uh, and so when you read a paper that teaches you something that you didn't know,
Mm.
talks about a particular innovation in mental health, it's incredibly rewarding. And of course, as soon as we read about those sorts of things, we go and investigate further and usually integrate it into our teaching.
That's really important to have that kind of process.
We can be dazzled. We hope to be dazzled.
So, in terms of your job, what are some of your favourite parts about your job? Interaction with students, I'm sure, is one of the big ones.
There's two bits. I absolutely love delivering lectures. I don't like to use the word teaching because usually it's just learning that we
Yeah.
all do together, me included. Um, so I really enjoy that. That was what sold the position to me. That was what I want to come down here and do. Uh, Another part I really enjoy about my job is when people finish the program and the sense of pride that you feel for them and for yourself, and how proud you are that these safe, effective, confident clinicians are now about to go out into clinical practice and do good. And then lastly, one of the things that I've really enjoyed is listening to student feedback and trying to be adaptive to make the experience the best it can be.
Yeah.
And I think that that's incredibly important.
I think something that I feel like the university does really well is they do listen to student feedback in order to improve the course.
I fully accept that my ideas, whilst I like to think most of them would be good, I certainly have to keep my ears open and listen to everybody around me. I think some of the best ideas we've had in terms of how we've improved the mental health program has come from our learners, and I think they're absolutely best placed to give us that feedback.
So, in terms of since you've been at the university, has there been any sort of standout moments that you've really been proud of that you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're coming up to a sort of a real standout moment for me. I started at the university 2.5 years ago. And the cohort that joined the mental health nursing program, then I'm now coming up to qualify. And I think this will be the first cohort that I've seen since I've been here at the university from start to finish. And so I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about how I think that will be a very proud moment indeed. So, other things that I've done that I'm particularly proud of is I met with a couple of student representatives from our program who helped myself and our wonderful placement team here to come up with a system whereby students could swap placement and they could pick their placement. That was an innovation that I was very much part of. I'm very proud that we offer students that sort of flexibility and agency over their program.
That's really important to have that option. So I'm sure when you started the role, there were things that came up that you weren't necessarily expecting. So were any challenges that you faced that you've overcome?
Yes. How much reading I would be doing. Right? So it definitely was a culture shock to become to get back into academia myself. It had been a few years. And so to get into those good study habits, which I think are important, whether you're a learner, and I would definitely say I know you're a lecturer.
Yeah.
And so getting back into the swing of good, healthy study practices, I think was really, really important. So much so it forms the basis of the masters that I'm currently studying here at the University of Suffolk. I care so much about good study habits that I felt the need to research it too.
You just mentioned it there, and I was going to ask about you're studying a master's. Presumably, is that to do with nursing?
It's a master's in education.
Okay.
Yeah, so a master's in education, but it does focus on nursing. So I am looking at student nurses' self-efficacy in theoretical and practical components.
Okay.
So it sounds very wordy, but essentially what it boils down to is I care about students' self-belief. Do they believe that they can achieve, and how can we maximize that belief and turn that belief into tangible results on the program?
And I'm sure that now you're a student as well, that's potentially helped in your role as well.
Yes, it's just nice to remember exactly what it's like. I go to tutorials with my tutor. You know, I'm the student rep for my cohort. So to take on these sorts of roles means that you get that perspective of seeing it from both sides. So, you know, I just think that's really, really helpful and really, really powerful. It's not something I really want to, I'm in any hurry to forget.
No, 100%, and it's worth mentioning as well for staff members that are listening. There is that option to study alongside their work, and there is the option of a fee waiver
And
as well.
it's really rewarding
Yeah.
to do that. I have a lot to thank the University of Suffolk for. I did my nurse training here. I've done every postgraduate education I've got here at the University of Suffolk, and I'm still continue to study here. So I have a lot to be very, very grateful for.
And it really is such a supportive university, and they really do. If you have an interest to maybe study something they'll push for because it helps them as much as it helps
And
personally.
I think I am a great walk and talking example of how the university invests in people.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, we've got a wonderful campus here at the university. Do you have a particular favourite spot on campus that you like?
The Atrium Caf. I just love the Atrium Caf. I love the vibe. I like the fact that there's natural light coming in through the roof. I just think it's the nicest place on campus. I think I like it because maybe it isn't the busiest, but you know, I just find it's really nice. Very often I'll meet my colleagues there. We'll have coffee and sort of discuss, you know, whatever it is that we've agreed to meet up for. But I think it's the coolest place.
Yeah.
I think other than that, the simulation wards, just because I think that they're they're as close to real life practice as they can be, and I think that there's no there's no better way to teach than that, really.
I mean, I can certainly recommend the Atrium's bacon sandwiches. They're really nice.
Yeah, they're fantastic bacon sarnies. I think their meal deal prices are brilliant.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, you know, that means I eat a fair bit. Yeah.
In terms of Suffolk more generally, do you have a favourite spots in Suffolk that you like?
Yeah, I think that I've always lived. I was born and raised in Suffolk, and I think Suffolk is an absolutely beautiful place. I think my favourite place is where they filmed a lot of the Harry Potters. in Lavingham.
Yeah.
Lavenham. I think it's an absolutely beautiful chocolate box Suffolk village that if I could, I'd spend all my time there.
Yeah. I live not far from Lebanon.
Oh, yeah.
And really, really nice, isn't it? So, I'm sure I know your role is very busy in terms of lecturing and then as a student as well. What do you like to do in your downtime? Do you have any hobbies? And
I do. I have a few hobbies. I really, really love board games.
okay.
I have a room full of board games to the despair of my children. From wall to wall, I have probably about 300-400 board games.
Really?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
something I really, really love to do. And a lot of my colleagues that I used to work with in clinical practice in the NHS, I meet them every Tuesday night. We play a board game.
Wow. What are your favourites?
So there's some absolute corkers. Azul is always a favourite of mine. There's a lovely little game where you have to play as a potion master, brewing the best potion, a game called Quacks of Quellenberg, which is a bit of a mouthful to say. I really love that game. I think it's great. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're never going to run out of games to play if you've got 400 in the.
No. Unfortunately, I still have loads that I haven't got around to play. Still in the cellophane. Hope to get to sometime soon. Maybe after my studies.
Yeah.
My masters.
Yeah. Treat yourself. Or maybe treat yourself to some more ball games. I'm sure you can never have enough.
I'm not there to.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a really interesting conversation, and I've certainly learned a lot. I'm sure listeners have as well. We've come to our final question now, which is our answer one, ask one question. So you're going to answer a question from a previous guest, and you're going to pose one to the next guest. So the question we have for you, which I think is a really interesting question, is if you were to describe the University of Suffolk to an outsider that doesn't know anything about the university, that haven't been here before, what would you say to them?
I'd say it's got to be one of the most technologically advanced, inclusive, and dynamic environments to come and learn.
Wow.
So I would invite people to do just that, really. So yeah, come and learn here. I think it's a great place. Like I say, I think I've got most of my career highlights. I've got University of Suffolk to thank behind it. So I really do believe that it's a great institution to come and learn at and be part of.
Brilliant. In terms of the next guest, do you have any ideas for a question?
Yeah,
potentially?
absolutely. So I would love to know what I know the bits of my job that make me most happy, such as teaching. I would be very, very interested to hear from one of my colleagues what part of their teaching role or their role within the university makes them most happy.
Okay, that's a great question. Certainly look forward to asking the next guest that question when it comes around to it. So thanks so much for joining us again, Justin. So until next time, it's goodbye from Justin.
Bye-bye.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to the Student Experience podcast. If you would like to be a future guest, email studentexperienceteam@uos.ac.uk or follow the links to our application form through our Brightspace page. You can also reach out to us through our Instagram page @UOS_student experience.